Greetings Game Watchers, I'm Chris Capel and welcome to the review of Armorkrog. The story of Armorkrog goes like this. Tommy Nought and his dog-like sidekick Beak-Beak are the last survivors of a group of astronauts sent out to find a power source to save their home planet, Ixon. They've crash-landed on the planet Spyro 5, the home of the substance called Plutonium that could be the power source they need, except they find themselves trapped in the weird fortress of Armorkrog. Storytelling in Armorkrog is kept to an absolute minimum. And while I don't mind minimalist plots and games, I do mind when there's barely any dialogue, characters or anything to flesh out the world. The world Pencil Test have created is weird, wonderful and I really wanted to explore it in full, so it was utterly disheartening to have so little to interact with and so little conversation from either Tommy Nought or Beak-Beak. For example, I loved the three presidents, but they're just a brief cutscene each and no explanation of why they look like ant versions of famous US presidents. The third one only says one word and doesn't even have a point. It's Tommy Nought and Beak-Beak that come off worse though. I love Mystery Science Theatre 3000's Michael Nelson and veteran cartoon voice actor Rob Paulson in the roles, but they rarely interact and it actually comes as a shock when one of them says something outside of one of the few cutscenes in the game. This makes things much worse when you want them to give you hints or describe interesting things in the environment like in every adventure game ever. But it's just sullen silence for 85% of Armorkrog. Subtly that means that Armorkrog isn't as fun to explore as it could have and should have been. The lack of most kinds of hints also means that if you get stuck on the puzzles you're pretty much forced into looking up a walkthrough. The actual puzzles themselves though aren't difficult to work out. The difficulty comes when the solution is on an etching on a wall on the complete other side of the game world, or you understandably hadn't realised that clicking an octopus attached to the ceiling was a requirement for plot progression, especially as every time that octopus was clicked on before that exact moment, nothing happened. Some of the puzzles are just an exercise in time wasting or frustration. A recurrent baby mobile puzzle is trial and error, and is both extremely boring and extremely aggravating at the same time, since you're being bombarded with a terrible melody and a baby crying at the same time. The penultimate puzzle in the game is especially annoying because it requires retracing your steps throughout the entire game to find 4 arbitrary symbols. You'll get stuck because you didn't notice something, but actually you didn't notice it because Pencil Test didn't call attention to it properly. Such as when Beak-Beak is able to press a button but Tommy Nought can't for no reason. Oh, and one final note, have a pen and paper handy. Yes, we're back to those days. By far the best thing I have to say about Armorkrog involves the graphics and sound, but even both of them have caveats. The clay animation style is gorgeous, with the cutscenes in particular being a treat to behold, but the game is fortunately just as lovely too. Tommy Nought and Beak-Beak are wonderfully evocative, designs are cutely crazy, and the homemade sets make Armorkrog even more charming. Caveat? Things aren't as interactive as they should be, and many of the areas are actually pretty boring. Yes, it's fun that this room is made out of clay with thumb grooves, but couldn't there be more to look at in it? The music by Terry Scott Taylor is superb and very catchy, much like his soundtracks for the Neverhood and Skull Monkeys, and I only wish there was more of it. Unfortunately, the but here is that the music regularly cuts out and cutscene at random moments, and the game becomes eerily quiet without it. Speaking of quality issues with the sound, voice acting occasionally sounds like it was recorded over a bad phone line on the bottom of the sea, and sound effects now and again simply won't play. The fact is, Armorkrog is simply clearly unfinished. There are reports of massive game-breaking bugs that require restarts to fix, or even changing your Windows language. The save page is hidden away in the options menu for some reason. At least one puzzle-locked door can be walked straight through, screwing the game up. The mouse pointer is the default Windows cursor and it turns every area into a pixel hunt as you don't know what objects can be interactive with or when. Sometimes clicking on something interactive won't do anything anyway, particularly if you're trying to get Beak-Beak to jump on a button. There's no inventory button, nor is obvious when you've switched between the two characters. And there's cost-cutting measures, like having the same animation on the father ghost every time you meet him, and the very final action in the game to finish off the boss being denied you for no reason at all. Oh, and the game's only about 3 hours long, even with all the padding. Speaking non-critically about Armorkrog, I did get enjoyment exploring its walls, but at the end I said, is that it? Rather than, that was a great game and it satisfied me. As a lovely and crazy world to explore with a charming art style and catchy music, it's just fine. But as a game, Armorkrog comes up significantly short. Puzzles are either dull, badly signposted or contain pointless busy work. There's nowhere near enough dialogue or anything else that could truly make the world come alive, and the game is seriously unfinished. It's clear to us that the game's Kickstarter funds ran short, and Pencil Test had to cut corners everywhere so that Armacrog only feels a tenth of the game it could have been. Wait and hope for some major patches for now, but even then Armacrog still won't actually feel finished. In the end I gave Armacrog a score of 5.5. Shame. Thanks for watching everyone. Chris Capel and Game Watcher out.
There could be Carpathian brain suckers or even...
Thanks for watching again guys. If you enjoyed the review, you can help us out by subscribing to our YouTube channel, checking out our Twitter feed, and of course visiting GameWatcher.com for all your PC gaming needs.